Stepbrother stole my identity on moving day. What started as family drama turned into the biggest of my life. So this all went down a few years ago, but I still think about it every single time I see my stepbrother Andrew. He's 45 now, but back then he had just moved back into town after his second divorce. My dad, his stepdad, always had a soft spot for him, so when Andrew asked for help moving into a small rental house across town, of course, we all got roped in. It was me, my dad, my younger sister Emily, and Andrew. The day started off normal enough, boxes everywhere, Andrew complaining about how his ex took him for everything, and my dad trying to lighten the mood by cracking bad jokes. Emily and I mostly hauled boxes while Andrew stood around directing, which was pretty typical. But the weird thing started when I noticed one of my bank statements sticking out of a folder in Andrew's box. I knew it was mine because it had my address on it. I pulled it out and said, "Ah, Andrew, why do you have my Wells Fargo statement in here?" He barely blinked. "Oh, must have gotten mixed up with the mail, no big deal." At the time, I wanted to believe him. We'd lived in the same house for a while when we were younger, so it wasn't impossible for old mail to get shuffled around. But later that afternoon, when I went to grab more tape from the kitchen, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Andrew had my social security card and an old driver's license sitting on the counter. "Andrew," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "why the hell do you have these?" He looked up like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar and muttered, "Relax, man, I was just holding on to them so you didn't lose them in the move." Except it wasn't my move, it was his. My sister Emily overheard and immediately got suspicious too. "That doesn't even make sense, Andrew. Why would his social security card be in your moving boxes?" He snapped at her. "Stay out of it, Em. You don't understand." The whole rest of the day, I had this pit in my stomach. I kept thinking about how broke Andrew always seemed to be, how he always had some new excuse about money, and how weirdly defensive he got. Still, I didn't confront him further in front of Dad, because Dad already thinks I hold grudges against Andrew. That night, though, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went online to check my credit accounts, and sure enough, there were 2 brand new credit card applications I didn't recognize. Both filed just a week earlier. I swear my heart dropped into my shoes. Suddenly everything clicked. Andrew wasn't just borrowing my info by accident. He was straight up stealing my identity. And the worst part? Moving day wasn't just a coincidence. He'd planned the whole thing. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Andrew's smug face in those credit applications. I kept thinking, what if he's already used my name for loans? What if he's ruined my credit? The next morning, I called the credit card companies listed on my report. Both reps confirmed what I dreaded. The applications were in my name, but the phone number and email didn't match mine. One of the reps even read it out loud Andrew's old Gmail address. That was the smoking gun. I was furious, but I knew I had to tread carefully. Dad has this blind spot when it comes to Andrew. No matter what he does, Dad finds a way to excuse it. I called Emily first. It's Andrew. He actually used my info. He applied for credit cards." There was a pause, then she whispered, "Holy, I knew it. I knew something was off yesterday." We decided to confront him together. That afternoon, we drove over to Andrew's rental house, where he was still buried in half-unpacked boxes and beer cans. Dad was there too, sitting on the couch and laughing at some stupid YouTube video Andrew had put on. I pulled up the credit alerts on my phone. "Andrew, care to explain this?" I shoved the screen in his face. His eyes flickered for just a second before he smirked. "You're overreacting. I was just trying to get a card so I could help cover some moving expenses. I was going to pay it off. Chill." "Chill?" I snapped. "You literally committed fraud in my name. Do you realize how illegal this is?" Emily backed me up, her voice shaking with anger. "This isn't just borrowing. You stole his identity. What the hell is wrong with you?" Dad put his hands up like a referee. Whoa, let's not turn this into World War Room 3. Andrew's going through a tough time. Maybe it was a mistake. A mistake. I cut him off. "Dad, he had my social security card. That's not a mistake. That's premeditated." Andrew rolled his eyes and muttered, "Jesus, you act like I murdered someone. It's just a couple of applications. They didn't even go through." The way he said it so casual, like it was no big deal, made my blood boil. He wasn't even sorry. He didn't even try to be sorry. I turned to Dad. "You keep offending him, but this isn't some little screw-up. This could destroy my credit, my job prospects, everything. I'm not letting it slide." Andrew stood up then, puffing out his chest like he was going to intimidate me. "You think you're better than me because you've got your life together? Screw you. I was just trying to get back on my feet." Emily got between us, glaring at him. "By screwing over your own brother? That's pathetic." The room went dead silent after that. Dad looked torn, like he didn't know who to believe. But I knew then that if I didn't take action, Andrew would do it again and maybe worse next time. I left Andrew's place that night shaking with rage. Emily drove us home, and I kept replaying his smug grin in my head. The audacity of him saying it was no big deal made me feel like I was losing my mind. Identity theft isn't just some prank, it follows you for years. By the time I got home, I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let Andrew get away with this. The next morning, I called the credit bureau to place a froze alert on my accounts. Then I called the bank, cancelled my cards, and requested a freeze. It felt like I was building a fortress against my own stepbrother. The hardest part was Dad. I knew he'd be furious if I reported Andrew, but I also knew I couldn't just ignore it. That evening, I sat him down at the kitchen table. Emily was there too, thank God, because I needed backup. "Dad," I said carefully, Andrew didn't just make a mistake. I confirmed it with the credit companies. He used his own email and phone number with my name. That's fraud. I'm filing a police report. Dad's face turned red immediately. Come on, you're really going to drag the cops into this? He's family. You don't throw family under the bus. Family doesn't steal your entire identity. I shot back. He's 45 years old, Dad. He knows exactly what he's doing. Emily put her hand on Dad's arm. This isn't about loyalty. It's about protecting Andrew from himself. If he keeps doing this, it'll just get worse. But Dad wasn't budging. You kids never understood Andrew. He's had a rougher life than you. Show some compassion. That broke something in me. Compassion. I could lose my job if they run a credit check. I could lose my apartment. He could ruin my whole future. And you want me to just look the other way? The shouting must have carried down the hall, because a minute later Andrew strolled in like he owned the place. Oh, I see. Plotting against me now? I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Plotting? You stole my social security card. You applied for cards in my name. You think I'm just gonna let that slide? He sneered. Good luck proving it. All they'll see is some apps that didn't go through. You can't pin on me. That's when Emily lost it. She grabbed the folder he'd been carrying around and dumped it onto the table. Out spilled papers, envelopes, and my jaw dropped another piece of my mail. This one was recent, from my insurance company. Dad stared at it, his face pale. Andrew muttered, That's nothing, just junk. But we all knew it wasn't nothing. That was the moment Dad's illusion finally cracked. He looked at Andrew with a mix of disappointment and horror. Andrew, what the hell have you done? And for the first time all week, Andrew didn't have a quick answer. Andrew froze, his mouth opening and closing like he was about to argue, but the words just wouldn't come. For once, he didn't have an excuse ready. Dad just sat there staring at the insurance letter like it was radioactive. Emily crossed her arms. Still want to tell us it's a mistake. That's my brother's name, his address, his account number. You can't fake this anymore. Andrew finally muttered, I was going to give it back. I just needed a head start. A head start? I exploded. You've had 45 years of head starts, Andrew, and every time, someone else has to pay the price. Dad rubbed his forehead like he had a migraine. Jesus Christ, Andrew, I can't cover for you this time. This is serious. That should have been the breaking point, but Andrew snapped. He slammed his hands on the table, sending papers scattering. You think you're all perfect? You think you're better than me? I just needed one chance. And you? He pointed at me, eyes wild. You've always had everything handed to you. Nice job, nice car, everyone loves you. And I get. The room went ice cold. I wasn't sure if he was going to swing at me or break down crying. Honestly, maybe both. I kept my voice steady. Andrew, I'm done. I'm filing a police report tomorrow. That set him off. He lunged forward like he was about to grab me, but Dad jumped between us. Enough, he shouted, his voice shaking. Andrew, get out of this house right now. For a second, I thought Andrew might fight him too, but then he grabbed the folder, stuffed a few papers back in, and stormed toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back and snarled, You'll regret this. Then the door slammed so hard the walls rattled. Emily exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. Well, there it is, he said the quiet part out loud. I sat down again, my hands still shaking. Dad looked 10 years older in that moment. He finally admitted. I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself he'd turn it around, but he really crossed the line. Dad, I said quietly, if I don't report this, what happens when he does it to someone else, or worse, when he takes out something in your name? That hit him hard. He didn't answer right away, but I could see it sinking in. For the first time, Dad wasn't trying to protect Andrew. He just nodded slowly. Do what you have to do. That night, I sat at my desk with all the evidence spread out, the statements, the suspicious emails, the credit alerts. My stomach was in knots, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself. When I hit submit on the online police report, my hands were trembling. Part of me felt like I was betraying family, but the other part of me, the part that still had to live with my name, my credit, my future, knew I had no choice. And that was just the beginning. Filing that report felt like dropping a bomb. I thought I'd feel relief, but instead, I sat awake half the night imagining every possible outcome. Would the cops actually do anything? Would Andrew retaliate? Would Dad hate me forever? The next morning, I got a call from a detective. He sounded calm, almost bored, but when I explained the situation and forwarded the documents, his tone shifted. You did the right thing filing this, he said. Identity theft between family members isn't unusual, but it's serious. We'll look into it. That phrase between family members hit me like a punch. He wasn't just some guy off the street. He was supposed to be my brother. By the end of the week, the follow-up began. Emily texted me first. Andrew called me drunk, said you ruined his life, said the cops came by asking questions. A knot twisted in my stomach. I didn't want to picture Andrew cornered like that, but I also couldn't forget his threat. You'll regret this. Sure enough, 2 days later, my phone lit up with his number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. You happy now? He slurred. You've destroyed me. They froze my accounts. I can't even rent a down truck for work. You think you're some hero, but you're just a rat. Rot. I tried to stay calm. Andrew, you destroyed yourself. You used my name. You stole from me. What did you expect? There was silence on the line, then a low laugh. You think you're safe, you're not. I've still got ways to get what I need. Then he hung up. My blood went cold. I immediately called the detective back and reported the threat. He told me they'd document it, and if Andrew escalated, they could file charges for harassment too. Meanwhile, Dad was caught in the middle. One night, he showed up at my apartment looking exhausted. He sat on the couch inside. I don't know what to do. He's my son in every way that matters, but he crossed a line I can't defend. Dad, I said gently, you don't have to choose between us. You just have to stop covering for him. He'll never change if people keep cleaning up his mess. For the first time, Dad didn't argue. He just nodded, tears in his eyes. It was brutal watching him realize his golden boy wasn't just troubled, he was dangerous. Emily stayed solid on my side though. She kept reminding me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't being dramatic. Honestly, without her, I might have second-guessed myself into dropping it. Then came the bombshell. A letter from the bank arrived in my mailbox confirming another account attempt in my name. The date? 2 days after I filed the report. That was it. I knew this wasn't just sloppy desperation anymore, it was war. Andrew wasn't going to stop until someone forced him to. When I opened the bank letter, my hand started shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. 2 days after the police report, and Andrew was still trying to use my name. I felt like he was spitting in my face, like he wanted to prove I couldn't stop him. I scanned it and sent it straight to the detective. Within an hour, he called me back. This strengthens the case. He's continuing the fraud even after being warned. That shows intent. We'll be moving forward. The word moving gave me a chill. That night, Emily came over with Chinese takeout. We sat on my floor, carton spread out, and she said what I'd been afraid to admit. He's not just broke. He's dangerous. He's spiraling. I don't think he'll stop until he hits rock bottom or someone makes him. I sighed, pushing lo mein around with my chopsticks. And I'm the someone. A week later, it all blew up. The police showed up at Andrew's rental with a warrant. Emily had it from a neighbour before I even got the call. He was arrested for attempted identity theft, possession of stolen documents, and fraud. Dad called me that night, his voice hoarse. They took him away in cuffs at Andrew, my boy. I never thought I'd see the day. I swallowed hard. Dad, I didn't want this, but what choice did I have? There was a long pause. Then, to my surprise, he said quietly, no, you did what I couldn't. But Andrew wasn't going down quietly. From jail, he somehow managed to get a message to Emily through one of his buddies. It said, tell your brother he'll pay for this, blood or not, I'll never forgive him. When Emily read it to me, I felt sick. My own stepbrother, someone I grew up sharing a house with, was threatening me from behind bars. The detective told me not to worry, that threats from inmates were common, and most of the time they couldn't act on them. But still, I started double locking my door at night. I caught myself jumping every time I saw a car I didn't recognize parked near my place. Dad visited Andrew in jail once. He told me afterward, he blames everyone but himself, says he ruined his life, says Emily betrayed him too. I couldn't even look him in the eye. He's not the son I thought I knew. Hearing that broke my heart in a different way. I'd wanted justice, not to see my father lose faith in his own stepson. But maybe that was inevitable. As Andrew sat in county, waiting for his hearing, I started piecing my life back together. Fraud alerts, endless phone calls to banks, new passwords for everything. It felt like I was cleaning up radioactive waste. But beneath the stress, there was also a strange relief. For the first time in years, Andrew couldn't touch me. Still, I knew the storm wasn't over. The trial was coming, and with it, the chance Andrew might finally face consequences he couldn't dodge. The months leading up to Andrew's hearing were some of the most surreal of my life. I was working my regular job during the day, but at night I was knee-deep in paperwork, letters from banks, and follow-ups with the detective. Every phone call felt like peeling back another layer of damage Andrew had tried to cause. When the court date finally arrived, I sat in the back with Emily and Dad. The room smelled like coffee and dust, and the tension was thick enough to choke on. Andrew shuffled in, wearing the orange jumpsuit, shackled at the wrists. He didn't even look at me, just smirked, like this was all some kind of joke. The prosecutor laid everything out, the stolen mail, the social security card, the fake applications, even the threats. It was like watching my nightmare laid out in bullet points. When my name was called to testify, my legs felt like lead. I told the court about finding my documents in his moving boxes, about the credit card applications, about the threatening phone call. My voice cracked a couple of times, but I forced myself to look at the judge, not at Andrew. When the defence had their turn, Andrew's lawyer tried to spin it like he was just borrowing information in desperation after a bad divorce. But even Dad shook his head at that. There was no spinning what Andrew had done. It was calculated, it was deliberate, and it was cruel. The judge didn't hold back. He called Andrew's actions a severe breach of trust, compounded by the family connection. In the end, Andrew was sentenced to a year in county jail with probation after, plus mandatory restitution for the fraudulent accounts. When the gavel hit, Andrew finally looked at me. His eyes were full of hate, but also something else, fear. For the first time, maybe he realised he wasn't untouchable. Afterward, Deb broke down in the hallway. I raised you both under one roof, he said, voice cracking. I never thought one of my sons would do this to the other. Emily hugged him tight. Dad, this isn't on you. Andrew made his choices. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of constantly looking over my shoulder was gone, even if part of me still worried what Andrew might do after probation. The fallout in the family was rough. Some relatives whispered that I should have kept it in the family. Others told me quietly that I did the right thing. At the end of the day, I knew one thing for sure: protecting my identity, my future, wasn't betrayal, it was survival. Now, years later, my credit is safe again. My accounts are locked down tight, and I'm more careful than ever. Andrew and I haven't spoken since the day in court, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. Sometimes I still think about that moving day, about how casual he looked with my social security card on the counter, like it was nothing. And I remind myself, family or not, nobody gets to steal who you are. That was the day I stopped seeing Andrew as my stepbrother, and started seeing him for what he really was.